All right, guys, welcome back to the Discovering Eden podcast. My name is Brandon,
And I'm Jonathan.
and we are back again for another day of creation. We are on day 6 of creation, so almost there,
Almost
almost there for the first creation story.
there.
So I think we'll get into it. So we'll get into prayer, and then we'll head right into discussion.
All right. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this time to gather together to discuss your word, discuss your creation, discuss everything surrounding that topic of conversation. Lord, I just pray that you guide this conversation in the direction that you want it to go, and that you just light the path forward and you give us knowledge and wisdom to engage in this conversation fruitfully. Um, yeah. Amen.
Amen. All right, let's get into the bumper, and let's get her done. All right.
So we'll just get right into the reading for the sixth day. Again, we're on day 6, not day 5, not day 4. So this is going to be Genesis 1, verses 20 through 31. Let me get it focused so I can read it.
Focus,
My old eyes.
John.
And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of it, has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day.
All right. Now, kind of going back with some of the ones that we've done before for the days of creation. Again, what stands out?
So there's a couple things here. I'm trying to finish my lifesaver so I can actually talk properly. um, Obviously, we've got the creation of more animals besides just the fish and the birds. But that's not the part that really stands out. I think the most obvious uh, piece that stands out is obviously in the creation of mankind. And there's a couple things there. The first, and again, the most obvious part is the creating mankind in our image. Um, Specifically, the use of the word "our" in the plural. I think that's a very interesting word choice, and I think you can go a little. There's a couple different directions you can go. There's two in particular that stand out. Obviously, the whole Trinity aspect of it. The other part is the whole language aspect of it, in that plural, using the plural tense was often used to describe royalty or people in positions of power. So, kind of obviously elevating God. Um, in that sense, I lean more towards the Trinity aspect of it, but I've heard the argument for the other side too. Um, was something else.
There's plenty of something else's.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it and finish my lifesaver. Obviously, there's the use of the word subdue and rule, putting mankind above the rest of the animals and creatures. That stands out to me. And then the last part is the use of the word mankind. Again, that's not a singular word; it's a plural word. And I think I know we've got the other creation story, but this brings into question: was there more beyond the garden in terms of humanity? I don't know. Again,
Valid
mankind
point.
is, I see that word as a plural, so I imagine there was more than just Adam to start. When they use that word, I don't know. I wasn't there.
You're creeping into some of the territory that I did some research and stuff
Okay,
on
interesting.
for some of the other things. But I'll
That
I'll dabble, I think, a little bit into it so we can kind of scratch the surface into where we're going in the future. Because basically what we're doing as a dry run, like the first run that we're gonna do is we're walking through the first chapters in Genesis, kind of what we can think of on our own.
Mhm.
And then we do a deep dive into, okay, now let's see what the context and all the cultural significance of
Mhm.
all this stuff is. And where else do we see it? And then that's kind of where we go into that. And of course, I've already pre-researched some things already.
I did absolutely none. That was all just prior knowledge, and
Yeah,
yeah.
and some of this stuff I already had prior knowledge of, which is why the series exists.
But you
But
can always go deeper.
it's going deeper into some things that I might not even know.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's just go back. So logic, scientific discussion.
My
Okay.
favorite part.
So all right, so we just got past birds and fish,
Mhm.
and now we get the land animals.
Mhm.
Again, what's the significance of getting that, at this point in time after birds and fish and plants?
That's a great question. Um, I don't want to use the cop out answer of foresight, but I mean that's part of it. I'm looking back at it, trying to.
And I mean,
Yeah, and my mind is kind of fuzzy right now,
yeah.
so um,
Yeah.
So-
So the cop out answer, foresight.
foresight. Well, yeah, I mean it's all again kind of goes back to that discussion of this. There is a design to how the ecosystem and animals and all of that stuff interacts, and seeing the plan kind of come to fruition is pretty interesting. But
Yeah, and in this day of creation, it's not just like animals on the land. It's
Mhm.
like any creature that's on the land. So that's insects, that's all
Mhm.
these other things as well. So just let's look at the variety
yeah,
of different creatures of the land that we have. So yes, we have the insects, we have mammals, we have beasts on the
Yeah.
land. So if you think dinosaurs, like you have lizards, uh, basically all that. It's so diverse.
the creatures that move along the ground,
Yeah.
basically.
So, I mean, in the notes here, I have just a couple of unique things.
Mhm.
Some of which don't make sense on the standpoint of an evolution standpoint. Like, for example, the bombardier beetle. Can it evolve to have a compartment that combusts
Pretty
in
crazy.
2 different chambers. So somewhere along the process, you can't have 2 things mix, or the bug becomes popcorn and it goes poof.
Yeah.
So that's like one thing to like the whole evolution. I mean, I kind of touched it with Darwin's thing, and maybe this is probably a lot of my bias coming in here.
Sure.
Because I don't believe in this evolution thing, as
Yeah.
it turns from one animal
Especially
to another.
especially on like a macro level, right? That
Yeah.
I think
If
is,
you want to call it like micro,
but I feel like that's
that's
it's more adaptability,
yeah, it's
right?
it's more adaptation.
It's the macro evolution that I have more of a difficult time even like. Yeah, I don't see it. I'm sorry, guys. I can see the adaptability is a known thing. Like we can see that very clearly across time, but
Yeah, but I mean, maybe that's just my opinion there. But that's my scientific opinion, because evolution is but a theory. Because there's no proven next links or any of that. And yes, the term evolution almost encompasses macro,
sure.
even though they use it for what I would term as adaptation.
Yeah.
But they call it the same thing. So, yeah. The only evolution that I'm okay with saying
Is the
is
Pokemon.
Pokemon.
I don't know if this applies to the science discussion of it, but it is something that stands out. And I'm looking back, and maybe I'm just missing it, but I'm not seeing where like here's the animals that you can use for food. They describe
Mhm.
specifically just the plants, which I find very interesting.
Well, it's because nothing was supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I
Blood
mean,
was not
it almost
spilled.
leads to that whole conversation of the fall, which I think, now saying it out loud, that's more of the theological side of the discussion. But I thought, oh, here's something that's interesting, and
It does stand out. It
Yeah.
does stand out. Because you don't, yeah, animals weren't meant for consumption,
Yeah.
according to
at least the story.
the text here,
Yeah.
at least. And that flows into the next creation story, and especially into the story that follows that.
Yeah.
So they're all interconnected. It's, again, part of the storytelling of why we get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I was sitting here like scrolling through it again. I'm like, did I just miss it? Like, but no, the animals aren't mentioned as referenced as food specifically.
And
It's
I know I'm
plants.
going a little bit forward here, but fast forward to the Garden of Eden. You can have anything that's in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
On the trees. Just don't pick from these 2 trees.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's still plant.
Mm-hmm.
There's no animals there. The only time an animal is mentioned is when it's slaughtered.
Yeah.
For the clothing of Adam and Eve. And thus was the first time
blood was spilled.
Yeah. But anyway, that again creeped into more of the theological discussion there.
For sure. We'll go back to science.
So, something I wanted to know, and although, yes, this technically also applies to fish and birds as well, is the communal aspect of a lot of different species.
Yeah.
So, yes, you have these for birds. They flock together, the V formation, taking the drafts of everybody, cycling, all that kind of thing. Or you have the fishnados, where they move all as one unit. I think of Wishy Washy because that's what it's based off of, the Pokemon, where they do that to avoid prey, so everybody moves all at once.
Kind of a big school of fish thing.
Yep. But then I think of different animals. So you have meerkats, known for like communicating with everyone in the colony. Or you got a pod of dolphins or whales. things like that. And
even insects like a beehive,
the bees,
and
all
ants
their fancy dances.
Mhm.
Uh, ants with their colony. The strength of the ant,
is impressive in of itself.
but then you get into the community aspect of, okay, well, you have a bunch of families and things like a pride of lions, like they hunt as a like there's certain things like wolf packs, they hunt as a pack, or different other things that include community. Community is so ingrained
Into life.
into life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something you specifically see a lot of with animals versus plants.
Yeah.
Well, plants communicate, but not in the same way that animals communicate. And the more you see on the land side of things, yes, you have. I don't want to say smarter because I wouldn't necessarily say that IQ goes up necessarily with land because there's still really smart things in like the water with dolphins and with whatever. But you have humanity in there. Oh, this is you're made in the image of God. Like you got the brains, you got the know-how, and you're reigning over
Mhm.
all this other creation that exemplifies the same kind of characteristics that you should.
Mhm.
The community aspect, different things like that. But yeah, community is a big thing, for even from a science standpoint. And I know I was creeping again into the theological, but so thinking about what's on the inside, like okay, so the chemical makeup of humanity or different things.
Mhm.
So, and this is something I learned in school, in biology class, cellular biology. So within the cells of animals, there's a protein called laminin. And do you remember at all what that is?
No.
No.
No. Couldn't tell you.
Okay.
It's been a while.
It serves to regulate cellular activities and signaling pathways. It's a protein, kind of like ribosomes, different things like that. So this protein is a crucial part in multicellular organisms, kind of like a building block, kind of like ribosomes are in a way. Um, and basically, what laminin is, and like if you look at it microscopically, it looks like a cross, which it's kind of fun. And for those watching, like look it up, look up what laminin is. So how well, I mean, you could probably find out googling it anyway, but it's LAMININ, laminin. So really cool thing. And yes, I tied it again to theology. It's the nature of this, really. And then kind of again going back to the wiring into the community aspect. Just like we are all wired uniquely, but at the same time we're all wired as one unit. So we can communicate with one another. So I know on the thing of for my small group study I put on here, I'd be like, there's different personalities that we have. So the ways that we can identify some of these things. You have the Enneagram, you have the Myers Briggs, like different tests. They like figure out how exactly you function, how you operate, and how you can interact or best interact with people that have either the same or different styles or personalities. And the same I think can be said of basically all of the animal kingdom. Now, obviously, you can't get a penguin to take a enneagram. I mean, maybe you can. I mean,
Probably not a penguin, right?
no, you're right. The wombat. Get your capybara to get its cap on, and write things down. I don't know. That's kind of be dumb, but whatever. language, different things like that. Obviously, language, it's not unique to the land animals here. But yeah. Anyway, let's just go to the theological discussion because that's where we're going anyway, or we typically keep going in that direction.
Yeah.
So let's first look at the plural usage.
Yeah.
Let us create mankind in our image.
Yeah.
Just basically that whole
Wording.
wording in there is all plural stuff, all community based. So let us. You mentioned Trinity before, as in it's a Trinitarian thing.
Yeah.
God the Father, God the Son,
God the Spirit.
God the Spirit as your Godhead
Mhm.
right there. So yes, and to us, yes, it makes sense because well, you have the Godhead. So yeah, God said, "Let us make
Sure.
mankind in our image." Like for us that grew up Christian, yeah, it checks out. But for those who are watching, that'd be like, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense. Totally understandable.
Well, and that's why I brought up the other argument that I had heard before. And it's one that I actually saw in my study Bible. They've got like footnotes and stuff, that describe all these verses, and it was talking about again the plural usage was used as a sign of respect to denote majesty or royalty or that's why I wanted to bring it up. Like there's an argument to be had for that. I don't know.
And something I'm going to mention as well. And this is giving a little bit of a brief preview of when we take a look at everything as a whole. So another way you could almost read this passage, like technically in the Hebrew and different things like that, is so God, as you read it in English, is not specifically God in the Hebrew. It's the same word for gods as well.
Oh, really?
Plural.
Interesting.
So, and that ties into, again, more Sumerian myth, where this follows a very similar pattern with the 7 days of creation, along with some other things. I'll get into that later. But basically, you had a bunch of parties of gods that were, hey, let's make them in our image, kind of thing. So it shares a very similar vibe to that. So that plurality there. But at the same time, you have a Trinitarian view in Egyptian mythology, which is a whole separate thing. Obviously, we'll get into some of these things a lot later on, but I wanted to kind of tease you a little bit of different things that it could be. I don't want to spoil too much of where we're going, but that's some of it. And obviously, with our viewpoint, our worldview, just coming off it straight up, what we read, by having the whole Bible as basically your source. Yes, you think Trinitarian view, let us make mankind in our image, being God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, as the Godhead. And speaking that of the creation of mankind.
Right.
Again, going to your point in mankind, maybe this could be more than just Adam and Eve. This is also why this is one creation story, not both.
Yeah.
Because there's two different creation stories. Adam and Eve is a separate creation story, separate from that of the days of creation. So, day one, or not day one, days of creation is separate from that of the Garden of Eden. Now, genealogy-wise, things are linked up with the Garden of Eden because there's names.
Right.
There are no names
mentioned. It's
mentioned
very generalized.
in the first creation story.
Yeah.
As opposed to in other cultures and different things like that. So that is another way of denoting it, especially relating it elsewhere as well. But that's besides the point. Let's move on because we running out of a little bit of time, but it's fine. It's fine. So I'm gonna rehash something I know I talked about. I don't remember which episode, but it's this idea of creation versus recreation,
Mm-hmm.
original versus a copy. So it's the difference between creation and make.
Mm.
So creation, something from nothing, something that hasn't existed before, and bang, it's in existence.
Yeah.
Whereas make is something that has already existed and forming it into something in the likeness of another. Or you making it into something new. So, and that's kind of how I view of God versus humanity. So God creates, comes out with all these things. So he creates mankind in God, like in his image. So what that means is that's all the imagination, all the creativity, everything that God is infused into who we are. Thus, we want to share in his likeness because we want to do the same things that God did. And that what that looks like is it's a copy or a replica of what God does. So it's an imitation. We're imitating our Father, which makes sense on a like father son or you know just parent and child relationship where the child naturally would want to imitate their parents, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just what happens, just on an instinctive standpoint. So just think about how you're thinking right now. That in and of itself is an imitation of what you have received from God the Father. Different things like that. You don't necessarily think about them that way. But then when you think of it in terms of creation versus make, well, we like to make things like we make cars. We make different things like that. Oh, well, God didn't create cars. No, but he created all the things that you need to make a car. You're just putting pieces together. Just like God can put things together and things into motion. It's a same imitative process. No, we can't create something from nothing. That's something we, as humans, have a limitation on. We cannot do it. God is different, and he can. And he can do things that we simply can't because, well, I guess the best way to say this is he's first in the pecking order because everything goes through him. But yeah. So, for example, you think of the word invention, like we can invent things. But that concept is something that God gave us to begin with. So, who invented the wheel? Well, God had things set in motion, like just in nature. There's things like circles and stuff like that you can see in nature. Things that, spin, different things like that. These concepts already have existed. It's just for the human or whatever who is inventing said thing to put some of the pieces that already exist into something else. And funnily enough, a lot of the inventions that we do see are based in nature. So you think of, planes, for example. Well, birds as like one of the things that was cited. Like, well, if they could fly, why can't we? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and then here's something I wanted to touch on, and I guess this will be the last thought uh, for the episode because we are running low on time. But I know I kind of mentioned this briefly in a previous day of creation, but when we think about humanity, we often think of humanity in the physical sense. What about on the spiritual side of things?
It's an interesting thought. Never thought about it that way.
So yes, there's humanity in that aspect, but let's go even a little bit deeper. So, if humans were given the ability, and I know I'm going with a way deep territory for different things, and it's not necessarily that I agree with it or not, but it's there. I mean, you go into the question of, oh, can my pets go to heaven?
Mm.
Different things like that. Is there a spiritual side to animals? Because if they do indeed have the breath of life in them, though it does say that humans specifically were made in the image of God.
Yeah. That is a tough question.
Which is why it doesn't have a concrete answer.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Because I know so often when we think of days of creation, we think of things in the physical sense, which is super easy for us to comprehend because it's physical. It's
We're
right
there.
there. What about on the spiritual side? And I know I mentioned that on what? Day one?
Probably.
Day one of creation, the light and darkness. But speaking of it in terms of spiritual and physical.
Mm-hmm.
But it does lend itself to getting you to pause and think about it.
Yeah.
Now, do I necessarily agree with the fact that, oh, can your pets go to heaven? I don't think so. But then again, I don't know.
Yeah. It's one of those. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have because I feel like you're just going to get wildly different opinions, depending on who you talk to. Some people will say one thing, some people will say the other. Some people just won't know. I don't have a even the foggiest idea.
Yeah,
Either way,
it's
I just don't.
yeah.
Do I think there would be animals in heaven? Yes. Do I think it would be your pets?
Well, see, I don't even know if there would be animals in heaven.
No.
Because that goes into the same question, like the same thing for me. It ties back to the humanity specifically was made in the image of God.
Sure.
Animals weren't.
Yeah.
That's why we have dominion over them. You can't have like a quote unquote meaningful conversation with your dog. They're not going to understand you the same way
No.
as a human would. There's a little bit of a barrier there. It's not that you can't have a relationship with a pet, with another animal. But it's not on the same level, I don't think. Though again, this goes into the community aspect. There's still community aspect in the midst of everything, but community is shown throughout all of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Not just humanity there. Just because I think it reflects the plurality that God himself has. community aspect between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Just as just as the Godhead has communion within himself, we too have communion with everything that comes around us. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents, I guess.
Sure.
Obviously, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just a hypothetical and a thought exercise. Because we don't have an answer. It's something like, I mean, if you're really curious, I guess you can ask God about it, but you won't really know until you're there. So, yeah. Not, in my opinion, it's not worth worrying that much about.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
If it is a deal breaker, I think maybe
Priorities.
maybe reorganize your priorities. But yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for this brief time. 'Cause I know we were kind of strapped for time today, but I guess that's all I have for this episode. I guess we'll save the bulk of things for later and what's to come. Because, boy, I have a lot more to talk about for this, but I can't because that's for later. I gave you a sneak peek, and that's, I guess, what you're going to get for now. But anyway, I think that'll be it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.
See ya.